Good morning. I've got 10 o'clock, so we're going to get things rolling. This is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and we're very pleased to be able to provide a webinar this morning actually being delivered by Hale on the TIMS application that's available to everyone here in Ohio. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Stephen. Just a quick reminder, though, before I do that, we will be muting the phone lines as you join, so please leave your phone line muted. We will open the phone lines back up when we get to the end of the webinar for questions and answers. You can also feel free to enter questions in the chat pod throughout the presentation. So, Stephen, are you ready?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can.
All right,
there
great.
You go.
All right, thanks, Victoria. So my name is Steve Hale. I'm with ODOT's Office of Technical Services, and we put this webinar together today to talk a little bit about our TIMS system. So for those who are not aware of the TIMS system, what this is it's a online web mapping portal that kind of centralizes a lot of ODOT's transportation data into one central location. Kind of like a one-stop shop to get a lot of our transportation data just in one place. So we do have some mapping tools that you can use within the TIMS application to get some of this data, and we can also serve out all this data just for full downloads too, so you can get all that information directly from one website. So what I want to do today is just show you some of the data that we have in TIMS, as well as show you some of the tools to get that data out of TIMS. If you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to go ahead and type those into the chat box, and Victoria usually lets me know when there are questions. I'll try my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, then we can always follow up after the webinar. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the TIMS homepage here. The URL is up top, so it's gis.dot.state.oh.us/TIMS. It's a nice mouthful there. This is accessible via just any web browser. We do recommend using Google Chrome. However, it will work in Internet Explorer just fine. It'll also work in any other browser that you prefer. There is a mobile version available that you can use just your whatever browser you have on your mobile phone or iPad. And it will take you to a slightly different version of TIMS that's, I guess, optimized for a smaller device, but that is possible too. If you want to use TIMS next week or the following month or something and you can't remember that URL, if you go to the ODOT homepage, scroll down a little bit on the left-hand side under Maps and Resources, there is a link to the TIMS page. That'll take you right there. And you can also just go to google.com and type in ODOT TIMS, and we will be one of the first options up there. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the application. So from the homepage, there are a couple links that I just want to hit on before we get into any of the content. Down on the bottom right-hand side of the homepage, there's a Help button. This will take you to a PDF document. It's our user guide. That will just give you all the tools and the functionality of the TIMS application is available here. So if you have questions about how to maybe use a tool, this might be your first place to check on that. Some of the screenshots are a little out of date. We have updated the application since the screenshots were taken. We are working to update this user document, and hopefully in the next month or two we'll have the updated version published. With that said, all of the functionality is still pretty much the same. It's just the screenshots are a little out of date. Another useful link down here at the bottom is this contact page. So this is how you can get in touch with us if you do have issues, questions, concerns, or maybe you want a little help using the TIMS system. Feel free to send an email to this link. It'll come directly to me and another gentleman here. And we try to get back to you within a couple hours. We do receive that email if we are available. So we try to be as responsive as possible there. So you'll notice as I'm navigating around through the site, I do have a few hyperlinks up top here. These will take you to those individual buttons, those pages that you saw on the home page. And you can also click this TIMS logo in the upper left-hand corner to take you back to the home page. You'll also notice there is a search by PID bar that you'll see throughout the application. And what a PID is, if you're not familiar with ODOT data, is a PID is a project ID number. So we have a lot of projects that we'll talk about actually in a minute. But every single project statewide has a PID associated with it. And you can, if you know the PID, if you come to TIMS just to get information about that project, you can just type in that PID here and it'll take you directly to that information. So with that said, let me jump into the project search page. So here at ODOT, we have a database that we refer to as our ELLIS database. And so what this ELLIS database is it is a database that holds all of our statewide projects. So these projects are all accessible here in the TIMS application, and we pull from this ELLIS database every single night. So if there is a new project that is input into the database that has committed federal funding, you should be able to see that in the TIMS application the very next day. What our project search page does is it allows you to filter that data. You can use a range of filters based off of locations and based off of work categories and fiscal years up here to filter that data. And if you don't know the exact name of that project or the location, you can drill down a little bit into the database and see if you can find that information. So you'll notice the project search page has these filters up top, but it also has a results table down below. This theme of a results table will repeat itself a few times throughout the application. But in this sense, this is showing you all of the projects statewide currently. You can see that I'm showing 54,000 entries in this results table here. You can only see 5 at a time currently, but if you click this drop down in the upper left-hand side, you can see more records at one time if you wish. So I'm gonna, just for this demo, I'm gonna go back down to 5. But you'll notice as I start to build out these queries, this table will respond dynamically and actually filter on the fly. So if I start to build a query for district, let's say district 6. Now if I look at this number, it's filtering down to 4,600 from an original number of 54,000. So already I've cut this table down drastically. I can filter further by typing in a county. And you'll notice as I'm typing, the text box is responsive. It sees the characters I'm typing and only gives me back the options that meet that criteria. So now just by adding 2 filters, I filtered down to 1,700 records from the original 54,000. I can keep going if I wanted to filter based off of a fiscal year or a calendar year. I can apply those as well, or a primary work category. So we have a lot to choose from. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you can start to type, and then it'll return only the text that meet that criteria that you just typed in. So let's say I found the project that I'm looking for here in my results table, and I want to get a little more information about that project. So what I can do is I can click on this View Details button on the left-hand side. We have a little bit of feedback there.
Alexa, play Charles Holiday.
Hello?
Charles Holiday.
Victoria, can you
I'm
mute
looking
that?
for them. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm looking
thank
for
you.
them. Thanks. There
Okay,
we go.
so if I wanted to get some more information about one of these projects, I can simply click on this View Details button on the left-hand side of my results table, and this will take you to the project information page. This is all of the information that we store about the projects within our TIMS system. We do store some location information, what type of project it is, who the project manager is, when the project is occurring. We have some dates and numbers for you. How much is the estimated cost? Where are these funds coming from? We have indicators there. If it is related to a bridge, we'll have a little bit of information about that bridge too. And then another option we have here in the project information page is you can actually click on the project plans directly from TIMS, and this will take you to another website managed by the Office of Contracts. And it'll allow you to actually click on the project plans, and you can view that information directly from TIMS. So back in the project information page, there are a couple additional buttons up top. So if we do have a lot of information about this project or all the projects in TIMS, but if there is something that we might not have, you can click this View in Ellis button. That'll take you to a public-facing portal that is similar to what we carry in Ellis. I don't think it has all of the information in the Ellis system, but there is a lot more information in this view than you would get in the TIMS site. So you might be able to use this to get a little more information. The other button at the top is a View and Map button. So say this is the project that you're interested in and you need to see exactly where this is occurring on the roadway. You can click the View and Map button. And this will take you to the Create a Map page, and it'll highlight that portion of roadway. Now, some of our projects actually come in as point locations. Those might be bridges or culvert activities. But if there is a linear location, it should show you the entire work location for that section of road. Now, I'm just going to backtrack just a tad. Now, if I keep going back, now I'm back to the project search page. You'll notice that the query that I've applied is reapplied when I go back to the project search page. For better or worse, the application does remember the most recent query that you've run. So next time you come into the project search page, it will display that query already. If you want to reset that, you can just click the reset buttons to remove that query. Now, if you look in the results table, you'll notice for this particular query, I show a few different project locations that all have the same PID. What that means is that these are all different work locations that are associated with the same project. And we have them as separate records because they are occurring in a slightly different location. If you wanted to view all of these projects at the same time on the map, what you can do is you can highlight each record just by clicking on it, click the View and Map button directly from the search page, and that'll take you to the TIMS map, but it'll highlight all of those work locations associated with that project. You can see here are some actual bridge projects too that are associated with that PID. And we'll come back to the Create a Map in just a second, but I'm going to backtrack. If you just want to export this data, say you found the information that you need, but you do not want to use TIMS for whatever reason, you want to export this to Excel or maybe your own GIS system, you can highlight the record you're interested in and just click the Export Data tool. So this will export to Excel, KMZ, a shapefile, or a geodatabase. And you'll notice that this theme also repeats itself throughout the application, and you can download those types of data sets elsewhere in the app. So once it's done downloading, you click the Download button, and it should just pop up in a new window when it is downloaded. There it is.
Stephen, we have a question.
Yeah.
So we want to know, will the TIMS system also show information if the project is a local let?
If there is committed federal funding, we will show that type of that project information. So I'm not really entrenched in the Ellis system, so I don't know exactly what that entails. But if you want to send a message privately to my email, I can certainly get you in contact with the right people on the Ellis team to answer that fully. All right, so that is the project search page. I am going to click the home page here and come back to the home page. The next portion that I want to speak on is Create a Map. So Create a Map is kind of the meat and potatoes behind TIMS, I would say. It's a mapping format that's very familiar. We do have some application changes that we've implemented in the last, I would say, 6 months or so. Early this past summer, we changed the whole Create a Map feel, and we went to a full screen map. has a very similar look and feel to like a Google Maps or something. So the map interface, you can click and drag around on the map. You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And we also have some buttons on the left-hand side that you can zoom in and out. The data that you are seeing in the map is what we refer to as a base map. So this isn't actual data that you can click on and get information about. It's really just an image. If you want to change that base map, if you want to view something else, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a set base map tool. So this allows you to toggle between all of the different base maps that we have available in TIMS. So depending on what type of data you're looking at, how you want the look and the feel of the map to come across, really depends on what base map you use. Now this ODOT base map, uses actual ODOT data. So if you have a question or concern about the layout of the roadway in the base map, so for instance, all of these base maps come from an external source. We don't maintain these. So if there is a question about maybe the alignment or the layout of a roadway in one of these other base maps, you can always cross-reference that with the ODOT base map to see exactly what our ODOT data is. So the other portions of the Create a Map site, you might have seen me minimize the results table here, is we have a results table down below. This will be populated once we start to query and filter data. But right now, because we have no queries built, I'm going to just minimize that to save real estate. In the left-hand side is another window. And all of these windows you can click and drag and make as large or as small as you'd like. So depending on what tool you're using, you might need to make that a little larger. Now the tool that is defaulted when you open up Create a Map is the Set Layers tool. So the Set Visible Layers tool is this button all the way on the left-hand side. And this is where you're going to come to turn on some data. So this is where you're going to come to actually view the different layers we have in TIMS. Now our layers are organized into what we call layer groupings based on what type of data that is. Some of the layer groupings we have assets. So a lot of the transportation related assets like bridges, culverts, pavement condition ratings are here, outfalls. A lot of the road specific types of assets you're going to find here under the asset layer grouping. Boundaries, if you need to reference some boundaries, we have townships, we have counties, districts, cities and villages. We do have some political boundaries in here, school districts. But you can turn on some of these boundaries to help supplement your map as well. We have a lot of environmental data sets. So we work very closely with the Office of Environmental here at ODOT to provide some of the important environmental related data sets for analysis here in ODOT and for external users as well. And then this project tab, so this is the same data that we just saw in the project search page. However, it's queried out into a few different predefined layers. So here you can see what is currently going on by clicking on the current projects. You can click on the next 4 fiscal years, or you can view the previous 4 fiscal years to see what was previously done. And we do have some project history as well. You'll notice that the projects are separated out into points and lines. That's just a limitation of the GIS software that we're using to publish this data. The bridges will be in a different file than the actual roadway segments. Roadway information. So one of our largest assets here at ODOT is the actual roadway. So we have a lot of information pertaining to the roadway here under roadway information. So one of the popular data sets that we have is traffic counts. A lot of people want to see how many cars are driving on the roadway. We have that data here under traffic AADT. We also have functional classification, NHS segments, scenic byways. We have all sorts of roadway related data here under the roadway information tab. Strategic transportation system. These are some statewide strategic transportation assets like airports, bus stops, Amtrak systems throughout the state of Ohio. And then the last data set is a safety data set. So some of you might be on this webinar interested in querying safety data, crash data. We do have a new portion of this application that is specific to querying crash data. We will get to that at the end of this webinar. However, this layer grouping here, this is all publicly available information. So what we're showing here is the severity of the crash, the location of the crash, and then very little details about maybe when the crash occurred. We've actually stripped out a lot of the sensitive data related to the safety records, and those are available here. We will have 2017 available, I want to say, in the next month or two. There is a grace period at the end of the year that they allow for editing of these records. Once that previous year is finalized, we will publish that 2017 data here in the public version. So in order to turn on these layers, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. In order to turn on these layers, you just click on the actual layer button. And when that layer turns green, that means that you've actually enabled that layer. So you'll notice a lot of these layers turn on right away. But if I wanted to turn on, say, the bridge inventory, that layer is enabled, but the data is not appearing on the map right away. So a lot of our data doesn't really make sense to view at a statewide level. So if you zoom in just a little bit to a certain predefined level, you'll see that the data will start to show up. Now, this does help performance a little bit of the application, so just be aware if you turn on some of these layers, you might have to zoom in a little bit for the data to actually show up. And along that same sense, as you zoom in a little more, you might see some labels pop up. If we tried to show the labels for the statewide data set, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, so we've limited that to only a certain zoom level. So what we're looking at here is the bridge data. And if I wanted to just get a little more information about one of these assets, these structures, up on my toolbar, there is an Identify Features tool. So I think the quickest and easiest way to drill down into some of these data sets is to use this tool. And you can just click on the asset there. So this will bring up all of the attribute information related to that asset that I clicked on. Now, a lot of these are coded values, or you might not understand what the field name is referring to. If that's the case, you can click on the Data Glossary tab over here. And we are trying to have the best possible definitions for each one of these data sets in that data glossary. It may or may not be completely up to par yet for every single data set, but we are working on making the best possible definitions we can. Now, also with this Identify tool is if you had multiple layers here in your map and you clicked on, say, 2 different layers, you can toggle between those layers here by clicking that drop down. Let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to turn on the PCR and the bridge, and I'm going to click in a location that has both of those assets. So now I'm only showing the bridge inventory that I clicked on, but if I click that drop down, I can also see the PCR data. So now I can toggle, and you'll notice that as I toggle between asset types, those particular assets that I'm currently viewing in the results layer are going to be highlighted. So I can now toggle between those as well. So if I have multiple features selected, I can toggle back and forth to see the information for the actual asset that I was interested in. So that's probably the quickest and easiest way to get the information out of the data sets. There are some other tools here in TIMS that will allow you to filter and build queries on the data set. So for this, I'm going to turn on, let's say, traffic AADT. So this is the average annualized daily traffic. Excuse me. So as you turn on these layers, you'll see that this, as well as the PCR layer that we just had turned on, those are all color-coded based off of something within the data set. If you are interested in seeing, okay, what exactly do these colors mean, or maybe I need to see a little more information about how this data is represented, in the Set Visible Layers tab up here, there is a legend. So you can click on the legend and actually see, okay, this is how the layers are symbolized. This is why they look the way they do. All right, so back to the filter data tools. So up on my toolbar, there is a filter data dropdown. And this gives you 3 different tools to filter the data to drill down a little more. The filter by attributes tool. This tool allows you to filter the data based off of specific attributes that exist in that data set. So the first thing that you need to do when you are using these tools is you need to select the layer that you want to filter from. I only have 1 layer turned on in my map right now, but if I had multiple layers turned on, I would be able to select between all those different layers. So next you can start to build a query based off of that data. So if I wanted to view just, say, Franklin County, I could find the county field, which is represented by this county abbreviation code. I could do is, and then I could start to type, FRA. So I could run that right now, and that would return all the results that fall within Franklin County, or I can refine that a little more. So if I wanted to refine my filter a little more, I could click the Add Filter button, and you can add, I don't know how many they let you add, but you can add quite a few different filter criteria here. So if I wanted to add, say, okay, and the actual counts, this AADT total number, let's say is greater than 100,000. So this is 100,000 cars per day on average. I could click search, and this will return those records, and it'll highlight those on the map. Now it's kind of hard to see the way the symbols look, but if you look closely, you'll notice that those segments are highlighted now. If I come back to my Set Visible Layers tab and turn off the rest of my traffic layer, you'll see that I now have a new layer in my map of the segments that I just queried out. So that will show up in your results layer over here as a new layer that you can turn on and off. Now also in that results table that I've minimized, if I go ahead and maximize that again, now I have all of those records that I queried out down here in my results table. Now you can do a few different things with the results table. You can filter or sort based off of any one of these column names. Also, we have these question marks up here that you can click on, and that'll give you a little more information about that particular field. So this is a direct link to our data glossary, which means you can click on the field, and if we have that information in the data glossary, you'll be able to see that above the actual layer name. Now, this particular layer name exists in multiple data sets, so we do have multiple entries. So like NLFID, that column is a pretty standardized column that we have in a lot of data. And so you can see everywhere that column name exists within TIMS. Now, if you wanted to, say, remove some of these records from the results table, you could click the X over here to remove those records. Or if you wanted to drill down into one of these selected records, you could click the Zoom to feature. Or as I'm clicking on these records, you can kind of see on the map, those segments are being highlighted, so you can see exactly what record you're clicking on. If you wanted to export this result, you can come over to the right-hand side, click the Export Data, and export that to Excel, KMZ, a shapefile, or geodatabase. And this will return all of the records. This will give you an output of all of the records that you have in your results table down here. All right, so the next filter data set is filter by geography. So I'm going to turn on a little smaller data set to illustrate this. Let's say ODOT facilities. And the reason I'm doing that is the more data that you're querying in the TIMS application, the longer the query might take to run. So just to keep things moving, let's do a filter by geography now. So I'm going to do it on this ODOT facilities layer. And then you can select a geographical boundary. So you can select a county, an MPO, a district, or an urban area. Let's say district. And then choose which one of those boundaries you want to select from. So this will change dynamically. If I choose an urban area, you'll be able to choose from all the urban areas that we have provided. But I'm going to choose district, and let's just do district 6. So it'll go ahead and highlight that geographical boundary. Then you can click search, and it'll return all of those locations that fall within the boundaries. Now keep in mind that works perfectly fine for point data because the point is either within or outside of a boundary location. If you are querying linear data, it will return all of the results that touch the boundary. So if part of the line is outside of the boundary, but part of the line is inside of the boundary, it will return that feature because it is touching the boundary of that feature. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So if I maximize my results table now, you'll see that I now have a different set of results. If I come back to my Set Visible Layers tool, in my layer results grouping up here, I now have multiple different layers that I've built based off of my queries. The application is currently not smart enough to know what data set you actually queried. So we can't say, okay, this is your filter on traffic. We actually can only do filter by attribute, filter by geography, or etc. We are hoping to have some sort of solution to that in the future. It's just not quite there yet. But you can toggle on these different filter layers. If I wanted to expose the filter by attributes in my results table, I can click Show Attributes. And then I will see those that data set now in my attribute table. You can turn these on and off just like any other layer. If you are done with one of them, you can click on it and say Remove Layer or Zoom to Layer. And then the last filter data tool, let me turn that layer back on. The last filter data tool is a filter by graphic tool. So the filter by graphic allows you to actually draw a graphic on the map. You can draw a point, a line, or a polygon. And you can actually build a buffer around that too. So I'm just going to illustrate this by drawing a line. I can click the draw button. And to start my line, I just click on the map, and then you can see the line is kind of drawing as I move my cursor around. As I click on the map, it adds additional vertices to that line. And so I can use that to maybe trace a corridor or draw, outline a river, or whatever it might be. And then when I'm done with my drawing, I can just double click. And then if I wanted to apply a buffer, let's buffer this by, say, 5 miles. Choose my unit of measurement here, and then I can click the buffer tool. And so that actually builds a buffer around that line that I just drew. And that buffer tool works the same for point features or polygon features. Now I can click search, and that will return all of the records that fall within that boundary. So in an application of this, if you wanted to do, say, a crash analysis or something like that, you would be able to draw these types of polygons, maybe outlined an intersection or a corridor or something like that, and select all the records that fall within a certain distance of that drawing. So those are the filter tools. Keeping things moving along, the next set of tools I want to talk about are the Find Locations tools. So we have a few different options to find locations here. You can find an address or an intersection. Pretty straightforward. You just type in the address you're looking for, click Find, and it will zoom to that location and drop a pin on the map. You can find latitude, longitude. Now there are a couple options here. You can use the Click on Map tool to actually click on the map and extract that information. So here is the latitude, longitude, and decimal degrees of that location that I just clicked. If you want that in degrees, minutes, seconds, you can toggle between the two, and it'll translate those real time. Or if you have a latitude and longitude that you need to look up, you can type that in here and click find. Oops, let me restart that tool to get a different latitude and longitude. Unfortunately, I don't memorize these things. I'll click find, and then that'll zoom your map and relocate you to that lat long that you typed in. So I'm going to skip over the log point for 1 second. The find area, very straightforward. You have those same boundaries that you had in the filter by graph or geography tool. You can select a county, MPO, district, or urban area. Choose the county name that you're looking for, and it will highlight and zoom you to that location on the map. Chances are, if you're using the TIMS application, you probably know where the counties are that you're looking for the data, but we do have that tool available. And then back to the log point. So the log point tool, a lot of the data that we have here at ODOT is what we refer to as linear referenced. So this means that we have all of our routes within the state of Ohio. We have an actual route ID, and then we have measurements along that route. So every road within the state of Ohio has an NLF ID, that stands for Network Linear Feature ID, and then a series of measurements along that route from 0 all the way up to the length of that route in miles. So this Find Log Point tool allows you to find a location on the map using that type of information, or it allows you to click on the map and extract that information for a location. So let me first illustrate the Click on Map tool. So I'm going to zoom in here to I-70. If I enable the Click on Map tool, now if I come over to the map, you'll see a set of crosshairs on my map. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on I-70 there. So once that tool turns green, blue and drops the flag, over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the actual ID for that route, the NLF ID, and then the county and the state log point. So the county log points for every single route within the state will reset at 0 when that route enters a new county. The state log points start at the inception of the route when it enters the state, and then continue to count up until the route is over, till the route ends at the other state boundary. So you'll notice that this NLF ID is a smart ID. So you have your jurisdiction, you have your county code, you have your route type, which for this case is interstate, and then your route number. And then that last character, the C, stands for the cardinality of the route. So if you have a divided route like I-70 is here, the cardinal direction is always going to be from west to east and south to north. So if I click on the other side of the road, you'll see that that NLF ID is identical with the exception of that last character, because now I've actually highlighted the non-cardinal route. So that's just the linear referencing in a nutshell there. If you have any other questions regarding this, we can take this offline. You can feel free to email me, and I'd be happy to chat about it. So the other tool we have here, you can actually select a county. Stick with Franklin County here. And once you choose a county, it'll show you in the next drop-down all of the available routes within that county. So there are quite a few municipal routes. If you scroll down, it goes very high, but there are very few interstate. So I'm going to just select an interstate here. Let's say I-70. And then once you select the route, it'll show you the minimum and the maximum measurements along that route that you can input into the tool. So that means that within Franklin County, this particular route is 24.9 miles long. So if I input something, let's say 10, click find, that will drop a flag and then locate me at that exact location along that route. So this is a very useful tool if you are doing work with ODOT and you need to report on NLF ID and log points. All right, so keep things moving along. I think we have about 20 minutes left. The next set of tools is cleverly named tools. The first tool here is a measure tool. Now this just gives you a few different tools to measure area, distance, location. This works the same way as the other drawing tools that we've discussed so far. You click on the type of measurement you want to make, the unit of measurement, and then click measure, and then you can just draw. And then your output will be over here in the left-hand side of the tool. If you make a measurement, so say you painstakingly drew the outline of a lake or some sort of boundary, you can come back here and you can change that unit of measurement, and it will translate that real time. So that's a pretty cool feature here. The next tool is a draw tool. So if you wanted to create a map here from TIMS to print out for somebody, but you wanted to maybe add some of your own drawings to help supplement that map, you have the ability with this draw tool to draw a point, a line, a polygon, or a text on your map. And what that will do is once you actually start to draw these drawings, if you did go to print your map, those would come through in your final product. So I'll illustrate that print function in just a minute. The next tool is a bookmark tool. So this bookmark tool allows you to bookmark a location. So if you are coming back to the same location in TIMS, maybe you're working on a project, you can actually bookmark that location, give it a name, and then if you accidentally zoomed away or the next time you come into the TIMS application, you could just come into your bookmarks and click zoom, and it'll take you right back to that exact location. There's another similar tool within TIMS. Let me turn on a couple other layers. But in the upper right-hand corner, there's a share map with your friends tool. So this actually creates a URL that you can copy. You can email it to somebody, you can save it, you can bookmark it. And then if I open that up in a new tab, that is going to take me back to that same location and turn on all the layers that I had enabled already. So one thing that's lacking here is if you do build custom queries or drawings, we are not able to currently show that in a saved map. So it will only save your location and the layers that you have turned on. So back in the tools, we have a couple more that I want to talk about. So this map channel tool, this allows you to click on the map, and it takes you to another external application that just shows you a few different views. So it has a street view here, as well as the bird's eye view and just the Google Maps view. So we thought that was pretty handy and a cool tool that we wanted to expose in TIMS. And then lastly is this ODOT PathWeb tool, which this PathWeb tool, we have a van that drives all of the state system on a 2-year cycle. And you can click on a roadway, and it'll take you to the path website, which unfortunately does not currently work in Google Chrome. But you can copy and paste that URL into Internet Explorer, and you can see the path web images as they were taken on that day. So if anybody has more questions about that, I think they are working on fixing the Google Chrome version, hopefully in the next month or two. But if you have more questions on this, please let me know.
I have a question for you that came in the chat pod. Does the bookmark feature only work internal to ODOT or external also?
That bookmark feature works for anybody. So all of this data, that's a good point that I didn't touch on. All of this information is 100% publicly available, with the exception of the crash mapping tool that I'm going to talk about. That means you can bookmark things, you can save them in your own personal web browsers, and when you come back to the TIMS application, you can go ahead and use those bookmarks, and it will be saved to your browser. Now, if you have multiple users on the same machine, it might be specific to that individual user. Was there another question, Victoria?
There is. When will LA right-of-way limits be shown in TIMS?
I'm not sure what LA means. Right-of-way limits, we are actually, this is one of the most requested pieces of data. I don't have a timeline for you, but I know that there is a project underway that they are
limited access for freeway, sorry.
Limited access for freeway. I'm not sure about that. If you want to go ahead and send me an email, I will follow up with you and try to get that information for you. But I don't want to tell you something that's not true right now because we're being recorded. So.
And then is there a separate webinar just on crash data?
They did offer a webinar. I'm not sure if they are offering any more this year, but when we rolled it out, they did a specific webinar that they recorded that will give a lot more information about the crash data. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Victoria, that information is probably on the LTAP website, the recordings of their webinars.
We can send a link out to the recording, but we'll also work on getting that group to host another webinar or two on the crash data.
Great, great. So yeah, let's keep this moving. I think we have about 15 minutes left. Let me just get through a couple more things, and then we can open it up for a few more questions. All right, so create a map. The last feature that I wanted to talk about in create a map is this add data to map. So if you wanted to add your own data, you could add a shapefile, a KMZ or a KML, or you could add LRS events, which is the linear referencing, lat long coordinates, or addresses via the add data to the map. We don't have a ton of time now to show this, but just keep in mind when you do add data to the map via this tool, that only exists in your current browser session. So next time you come to TIMS, you'll have to add that data again if you want to see that. All right, so I'm going to come back to my home page here. Now, the TIMS tool is created for a certain user set, maybe somebody that might not have the GIS tools or the know-how to access this data otherwise. If you are a GIS expert, or if you want to use Excel, whatever it might be to access this data, you can come directly to the data download page. So this page, you can access all of the same layers that we have in Create a Map, and you can download one or many at a time, and you can download the full data set. So this might be useful if you don't want to use TIMS, if you want to use your own system, you can download that data. Standard PDF maps, we do have this is a mapping engine that we do have a few predefined templates already built, most of which are relating to the project data. However, there is a functional classification map. We do have on our list to create some more standard PDF maps in the future. But what this does is you can click on the type of map that you want. You can dynamically choose the location that you want to center the map on, whether it's a county, a district, or a city. And then you can choose the size of your map too. Click generate map, and this will run for a minute and then spit you out a PDF that is standardized in the sense that you're looking at one piece of data. However, that data that populates the map is going to be dynamic. So if you created a map today, if the data changes for some reason tonight, tomorrow when you create that map, it might be different. So you can click download, and then that'll download that PDF map for you. All right, and then map viewers. So all of these are specific customized map viewers that we've created to display some more focused or directed content. So create a map is great. It has everything, all the layers that we have in TIMS. However, the map viewers here, so let me click on structures, for instance. The map viewers are a little more focused. We actually have some predefined queries set up in the map viewers. So for instance, instead of seeing one layer for all the bridges, we now have the bridges queried out into a handful of different layers that allow you to get more information quickly out of that piece of data. If anybody out there has ideas or suggestions for any map viewers that might be helpful for you, let us know, and we'll explore that. But we do have a handful of map viewers already created and ready to use. And then lastly is the data glossary up here. So this is where we are trying to organize all of the data definitions for each one of the data sets and the columns in those data sets here in the data glossary. It is still a work in progress. I'm not going to lie about this or anything, but we do have, for the majority of the data sets that we have in TIMS, we have very good definitions for you. If you come across a piece of data that you need maybe a little more information, please feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to help facilitate that. In the data glossary over here on the left-hand side, there is a little more information link to show you a description of that data set. And then it also shows you when the last time that data set was updated and how often we typically update that data set. So for instance, if I click on the bridge file, you'll see that that file was actually updated today, and the update cycle is daily. A lot of our very important assets like the projects, bridges, culverts, we do update every single day in TIMS. A lot of our other data sets like boundaries, the road inventory is relatively static. We only update that about once a year. But you can come here to the data glossary and see when that data was last updated. All right, and then the last little demo that I wanted to do is this crash data search page. So a previous question was, is there going to be a specific webinar on this? Victoria will work with the safety team to put together another webinar specifically for crash data. I think there is a pre-recorded one out there somewhere that we can help link you to. But the crash data search page is a secured page within TIMS, so you do need a login to access. Once you do have access, you click login, you'll come to a page similar to this. That it's very similar to kind of how we did the project search page, in the sense that you build a filter, you build a query, and then you can view that data in a map or download it directly. So real quickly, I just want to show you how that works. You can click on a year, you can click on one or many, but you do have to choose a year. You can also choose a month. There are some, there's a tab for crash details, so you can select a crash type, a crash severity. And if you know the document number of your crash, you can type that in right here, and it'll take you directly to that crash. Some emphasis areas you can choose. So what helped contribute to that crash? Excuse me. Driver and vehicle information. You can type in one or more options here. And then the location. So if you wanted to type in a type of road, or if you wanted to search just a specific county, city, township, or village, you can do that here. And also, if you only care about maybe a certain route, or maybe 2 or 3 routes, you can actually add a road segment here and search based on that route. So if you only cared about, say, Interstate 70, you could build that into your filter, and it would return only records for that route. Once you have your query built, now this is a very simple one. I just did Franklin County 2018. You have 2 options. You can view in the map, or you can download that directly. So I'm going to download first. So what that does is it'll spin and it'll tell you, okay, this is how many records you have. I think there is a max of 105,000 records that you can return. But once that does run, you can click the download button, and it'll download that into a CSV for you, which is actually opening on my other screen. So now you have all those crash records for that query that you just built. If you wanted to view that data in a map, maybe do some more analysis about an intersection or a corridor or something, you could click the View and Map button. It'll do the same thing. It'll spin for a minute, and then it'll return a result set. So you can see that the number of records returned is slightly different. And I would venture to guess that the difference between the 2 queries we just ran is that there are quite a few records in the new year that don't have a physical location mapped yet. So I think that's something that they work on month to month when they do get new data. But once you run that query, you can click View and Map, and that'll take you to a customized Create a Map page. It'll zoom in to all the records, and you'll have to be patient if you are running a large query. But then it'll show you all those records on the map there. And if you wanted to zoom in and drill down into a corridor analysis or an intersection, there is a filter crash events tool that allows you to draw multiple graphics. So I can draw a point here, and then I can also draw a line. And let's say I want to do that by 1,000 feet buffer. I can click draw, and I can trace my line here. Click search, and that's going to return all the records that fall within that that boundary. So it's very similar to the tool that we already discussed in TIMS. However, this one allows you to draw multiple shapes to query multiple areas. Once you have that data here in your results table, you can export it. And we also have a link to the CAM tool up here. So on your toolbar, when you're looking at the crash data, you will be able to download the CAM tool to Excel, and then you can just import your data directly from TIMS into the CAM tool. So that's a very quick overview demo of the crash analysis tool. If you are interested in getting a little more training on that, contact myself or Victoria, and we can get you set up for that webinar when we do have that. Additionally, before I take any more questions, there are some live in-person TIMS trainings coming up. So in the next, I guess, 4 or 5 months, we do have 3 in-person trainings. It covers the same topics, the same items that we talked about today, but it's it's not one-on-one, but it's interactive. There will be 1 or 2 trainers there from ODOT, and we'll walk through specific scenarios. You will have a computer in front of you, and you'll be able to follow along with a lot of what we're doing. So this is the flyer for that training. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that into our chat box. If anybody's interested,
I just put
are
the link there.
Oh, Victoria already did it. So these are free trainings, by the way. I think this TIMS training is one of the few LTAPs that we actually offer for free. So sign up now before the registration fills up.
Yep. Are there any questions? I think I've caught everything that was in the chat pod. There was a comment that a railroad map viewer would be helpful.
A railroad map viewer? Okay. So we do have some rail information under, I believe it's the roadway information or assets. Forgive me, I'm blanking. But we do have some road information already, and perhaps we could work with the Office of Rail Development to create that type of viewer. I'll go ahead and mark that down as an item for evaluation.
And there was a question if a copy of this webinar could be made available for later viewing. I have tried to record it, so if I'm successful at the end of the webinar with the recording, I will post it and send everyone who attended a link.
Great. All right. Now feel free to contact us if you guys have any additional questions after this webinar. And thanks for attending.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Feel free to give Stephen an email or drop us an email here at the LTAP Center. We appreciate your time this morning. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria.